Hey everyone, today is February 11th, 2023. So this is a really important video, guys. I believe with 100% confirmation that I decoded an event coming up surrounding the Super Bowl. Maybe it won't happen at the Super Bowl, but I think it's going to happen possibly during the game or a short period of time thereafter, maybe even the next day. But February 12th, the 13th, even Valentine's Day, but I'm not really talking about Valentine's Day yet in this video. One thing I know for sure that iPetGoat2 has shown us events that have occurred before they happen, but people just weren't able to decode the time frame. I'm telling you now that I decoded a time frame. Something is going to happen. So before I talk about that, I want to go over the earthquakes in Turkey. So that happened on February 6th. And we see this image from iPetGoat2, which again shows symbolism that can be related to that day of the earthquake. You know, the boy wearing the whirling dervish rising up in front of the full moon. Well, the country that's famous for the whirling dervish is Turkey, and those earthquakes actually happen during a full moon. February 6th was also the 37th day of the year. I made previous videos talking about this number 37 because Obama is looking down at the split apple image, but these letters at the backward C, which is the third letter, so third letter in the number 7 equal 37. The other way it's 12-3, the 12th and the third letter. So this earthquake happened on the 37th day of the year. Another thing that I noticed that day, since we have the split apple in the image, Apple stock hit its low for the day of minus 3.72. And the previous trading day before that, on Friday, Apple topped out at 157, which is the 37th prime. So the split apple could definitely be related to an earthquake, the earth splitting open. It also represents the Big Apple, New York City. On that note, on the same day, Buffalo, New York area was hit with the strongest earthquake in 40 years. Same day of the earthquake in Turkey, it was a 3.8 magnitude. And I think it's related, all related to this image. Now some other decodes that I did for that day. As you guys know that I like to look for the 322 codes, the skull and bones number, and I know we're going to see a lot of them this year, being in that year 2023 backwards 322. We see the 322 connection to the movie Quake, released in 2018. If you haven't seen the other videos that I made, putting reverse in parentheses means reversing these dates, the 26 over here, 831, keeping the same year. Also on that day, we had a 322 connection to the first Earth Day, 19,433 days, which is a 2,203rd prime. That number equals the 328th prime, and it happens that February 6th had 328 days remaining. Like on 328, which was the first UN Climate Change Conference. Now the first World Change Climate Conference was on February 12th. This year's Super Bowl is also on February 12th, the 44th anniversary of that. And there happens to be 322 days remaining. And so this year could be the year of natural disaster because the word natural disaster equals 223 in reverse ordinal gematria. And we are in the year 2023. So here's another image from iPetGoat. And it has a very similar striking appearance to the Super Bowl trophy. Not only that, we have the same child down here that was in front of the full moon wearing the whirling dervish, which I said probably related to the earthquakes in Turkey as they happen on a full moon. And so I believe that we're looking at another natural disaster. When you look at this whole scene, it looks like a volcanic explosion or nuclear explosion. I'll talk about that more in a minute. So I want to show you the 322 connections with the teams in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. It just shows me how scripted this really is. So for the NFC Championship, two teams that played each other to go to the Super Bowl, we had San Francisco and Philadelphia. And in ordinal gematria, it equals 223. And now when we look at the AFC championship game and we put in Kansas City and Cincinnati, the other two teams that played each other, well, we have a perfect 3-2-2 in reverse, the alphabetical order in reverse, like Z is 1 instead of A is 1, you know. And now look at the two teams that are playing in the Super Bowl when you take their full names, Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. Well, you have 3-2-2 in ordinal gematria. Now look at the scores of the two championship playoff games. The first one was 7-31. The second one was 20-23, another 3-2-2 within the score itself. If you put that in date form, it's July 31st, 2023, the 212th day of the year. And that happens to be the day the Super Bowl is on, 2/12. And as I said, 2/12 leaves 322 days remaining. And it's played in Arizona, the 48th state, and the number 223 is the 48th prime. In the city of Glendale as well, which lies on the 33rd parallel. So I previously just talked about how Apple stock related to that number 37 Friday trading day before the earthquake, as it hit a high of 157, the 37th prime. And look what Apple did in yesterday's close. It closed up 37 cents. So here's the image once again from PetGoat, but the full picture. I've talked about this before in previous videos, and this is definitely symbolic of a volcanic eruption on La Palma Island. Why? Because La Palma translates to the palm, and it is teardrop shape. In her palm, she's holding a bottle of tears next to the eruption. You can see the tears streaming off of her face, mourning the death of her son. So this could be nuclear or volcanic, because we see the ashes coming down. And it's probably both, because this video is multi-layered. And as most of you guys know, I look for that 322 and 9/11 connection. I noticed that February 12th is exactly 2,230 weeks after Mount St. Helens erupted. And there was a movie called Tsunami, and it released in Spain. And you know, Spain owns the islands of La Palma, and that is also 911 weeks. 213 is another very important date, which may be the actual date it happens, because it lines up more with the gematria and some other things that I found here. But it may be 213 in one side of the world while the Super Bowl is being played, something like that. But anyways, that date is 911 weeks, one day after this movie release. It's a TV-made movie called Tsunami, released in Spain. But looking at February 12th, as I said, that's the anniversary of the first World Change Climate Conference. It's the 44th anniversary. And guess what, guys? The word earthquake equals 44 in reduction, the most important cipher in gematria. This date in itself adds to 37. I talked about the importance of the number 37. 37 this way, but I also said to look at that number 12-3, the 12th letter and the third letter, L and C. And 213 is 123 on the Chinese calendar. And it also has 321 days remaining in the Earth, so that's 123 backwards. The word mega tsunami equals 123. And this date is also 5/22 on the Hebrew calendar. And I pointed this out because Obama is looking down at this apple with the V coming down his forehead. Well, this V could also represent the number 5 and 22, because V is the 5th Roman numeral, and it's also the 22nd letter of the alphabet. So a few seconds later in this image, we see the lotus flower blooming out of the apple. And one thing that this represents is Kamala Harris, because Kamala means lotus flower, and I believe she'll become president. So I'm very fascinated that on 213, it will be exactly 21,300 days after Kamala Harris was born. And if you go back in 2021 to the last eruption at La Palma, when everyone thought a huge disaster would happen, well, that eruption began at 213 local time. So the last slide that I want to show you guys is from the movie The Dark Knight Rises, Batman. And this is where Bane blows up the football field. So the explosions start outside of the city, and if you watch the video, it doesn't happen all at once. It's not an explosion at one time. It looks like a bunch of vents popping off, like you might see from a volcanic eruption. Then we see this number 322 shown directly after the football field is destroyed. And I already showed you guys the numerous 322 connections connecting to the Super Bowl. 322 days remaining, the teams adding up to 322. Played in the 48th state, the number 223 equals the 48th prime. So February 12th, February 13th, huge warning dates. As I showed you, I got my eye on La Palma, volcanic eruption, earthquake, tsunami, some type of natural disaster. Maybe it's something different that I'm not looking at. But I'm truly convinced, based on the evidence that I showed you, I uncovered a time frame for one of their big plans. So we'll see what happens, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.